going to go first. When Ann called me, I did ask her to join me, because sometimes it is a good idea to get both perspectives of a situation. So the one thing I would ask of you, please don't make this like the presidential election. Please don't start pitting us against each other and saying really bad things about each other. We're actually good friends. We work together on things, and so we need to solve this problem together. First of all, I am going to thank you, too, for coming tonight. The baseball game's on, plus it's a beautiful evening, so it's nice to have you here. I'm going to start by giving the presentation, and I would encourage you to ask questions at any time. If I'm going to cover it later on, I'll just let you know, but otherwise I'll answer your question. I don't know what you know about this topic. I honestly don't know how interested you are in this topic, so I'm going to be talking about what's interesting to me and what our issues are in the electric utility industry right now. The first thing I'm going to ask, though, is ask you a question. As Ann indicated, I'm the president and CEO at People's Energy Cooperative. So how many of you are People's Energy members? I got 1, 2. Good. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys trick questions. I'm really not. But. Okay, let's get started. Up on the screen now, this is just an idea of a little bit about People's Energy. The green area that you see on this map, that's our service territory for People's Energy. We go from Lake City down to Spring Valley, from Dover over to, this is St. Charles here, hit the Mississippi River up here. Our boundaries are weird like this. They kind of go all over the place because in 1976, the state legislator said, oh, there's an electric account here, there's an electric account here, and they drew a line right in between. And so that's how our boundaries got established here for People's Energy Cooperative. This is the city of Rochester right in the middle here. Our cooperative serves 18,000 plus members, and we have about 22,000 electric accounts. We actually have just shy of 3,000 miles of electric line that we maintain, and we cover 1,090 square acres of service territory. We have about 57 employees that take care of that, and 22 of them are line workers. So when you have an outage, we have 22 people that come out in the evenings and after hours to respond to those calls. We are a cooperative, as I indicated, and a cooperative means we're a member-owned organization, so the people who get electric service from People's Energy are members of our cooperative. And across the nation, all the green areas show you the land masses that are served by electric utilities that are cooperative. And so there are a lot of cooperatives across the state, over 900 of them. That's my background information. So if you need any more information on People's Energy or cooperatives, you'll have to ask. So these are the 4 challenges that I'm going to talk about today in terms of the energy environment. And the first 2 are probably don't really deal very much with what Kurt's going to talk about. The last 2 do, which is why I'm going first and he's going to go second. I'm going to talk about the conservation improvement plan, the environmental regulations or a new clean power plan that has been proposed, renewable energy requirements, and then distributed generation. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the conservation improvement plan. This is actually a state mandate that energy companies provide conservation or reduce energy use. So the state law says that year over year, we are required to reduce the amount of energy that we sell by 1.5% per year. And then next year down the road, we reduce it by another 1.5%. Next year down the road, another 1.5%. So I'm going to compare this legislation to let's say a bakery. So I'm a baker and I make bread and rolls. And I sell the bread and rolls and I make money and my business runs. I can pay for my ovens and my employees and my flour and my yeast and things like that go into it. But now, because bread isn't really very healthy for all of us all the time, and those rolls are especially not healthy, the state government steps in and says, we don't want you to sell quite so many of those rolls and that bread, so we want you to reduce your sales of bread by 1.5% per year. Well, for all of you who've worked in the normal business environment, that's not a very healthy business model to follow. It's very hard to live and survive and provide quality service in that environment. But that's the environment that we're working in the energy environment. And the last thing I want to imply is that this is a bad environment to work in, because conservation is important. It's the best way we can conserve energy and take care of our environment. So it is very important. The way we document that we are conserving energy is we provide information to the state of Minnesota in terms of the amount of dollars we pay back to our members for rebates or incentive programs and things like that. So if this gentleman over here, who's a member of Peoples, puts all new light bulbs in his house and he uses LED, and he puts in a new energy efficient refrigerator, he can send documentation into our office, and we provide him with incentives or rebates for those programs. And we collect all those dollars and send it into the state to verify that we actually are reducing our energy use year after year after year. We also can make system improvements. So that means, let's say we have a 40-year-old transformer out there on our line that we are using to provide electric power, but we go out there and replace that transformer with a more energy efficient transformer. We can also document that towards our conservation savings. People's Energy is actually meeting the requirements right now. It is a volunteer, it's not a volunteer program, but there are no penalties right now, and we hope it stays that way. Most utilities are working very hard to meet this requirement. I guess the biggest challenge, though, is as I talk about these other issues, when you think about this one where we have to reduce energy issues, each challenge kind of adds a little bit more challenge to each one of the issues. So one of the things that this law is leading us to do is to look at our rate structures for electric energy. And I am going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So the next topic I'm going to talk about is an environmental plan presented by the federal government, and it is called the Clean Power Plan. How many have heard of the Clean Power Plan? We got a few in the room that have. Okay, so the Environmental Protection Agency proposed this draft rules for a Clean Power Plan in 2014, and the EPA actually released rules for this Clean Power Plan in July of 2015. So the Clean Power Plan sets limits on how much carbon can go into the environment. And the rules were written so it said each state has to design their own plans to reduce their carbon. And if the state doesn't design their own plan, then you have to follow the federal plan. So there's incentives for states to design their own plan, but this is one of the most difficult and challenging new regulations that we've ever faced, because for those of you that, if you're legacy members of Peoples, if you've been with us for more than 2 years, you're getting your power from Dairyland Power Cooperative, which is in La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is not in the state of Minnesota. So the challenges of making this plan work across state lines are enormous. And the whole plan was implemented to reduce the dependence on fossil fuel, on coal plants. So the U.S. Supreme Court actually put a stay on this new regulation. And they put a stay on it because there were so many lawsuits that were filed as a result of it. And the stay is just temporary, but it was actually a good idea for them to do it, because if people would have gone ahead with the plan and then the regulations would have changed because of those lawsuits, there could have been a lot of dollars invested that would have been meaningless. So this actually, it delays the plan a little bit, but it actually likely means we'll do a better job of spending the dollars that we eventually incur. Dairyland Power, which is one of 2 power suppliers for People's Energy Cooperative, as I mentioned, is in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They're actually moving forward with trying to meet the Clean Power Plan requirements ahead of when the rule takes place by making well thought out decisions about where power should come from. But before I show you that, I also want to show you this slide. So I've been in the energy environment for over 30 years now, and in the last 20 years, the federal government has been coming out with regulations for reductions in SOx, NOx, and particulate matter. Sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide, and particulate matter. So those regulations have been coming out, and coal companies have had to meet those regulations by reducing the amount of particulates in the air. So what this graph shows, this is for Dairyland Power Cooperative, and it shows that in the 70s and 80s and 90s, in this area right here, you can see that they made considerable investments in new plants, new equipment, we call them scrubbers, things like that, actually millions of dollars investments in those plants to reduce the amount of emissions in these three areas. And this is the graph showing the actual reduction, and then 2016 through 2018 are the predictions of what the reductions will be. My point in showing you this slide before I move forward to the next slide is to let you know that basically millions of dollars have been invested in the coal power plants to meet these regulations over the past years. And those investments are not all paid for. They're part of the energy rates that we charge you, and they're also probably part of the rates if you pay your energy bill to RPU.
Question?
Oh, sure.
Could you talk about the scale you used on the bottom there?
This scale is years.
Right, but it seems like is it standard, or it seems like the 70s to 2010 is half, and then it's...
I actually got this from Dairyland Power, but it just shows that most of the investments were made in these years when the new regulations come out, and then you're going to see some of the reductions coming through in these years. So they just scrunched up the scale a little bit. And then this shows the percent drop in what... I can get more detailed information for you. I'm trying to keep it high level here, but that's a good question. Okay, so this is Dairyland's preferred plan. And basically, I'm going to show you a graph in a minute. Dairyland was almost all coal. So to meet the regulations that are coming out, there's an effort to make those changes. And so the first thing they're going to do is upgrade, it's called the JP Magnet plant and the Genoa power plant, again, to meet all regulations that are in place. They have retired 5 of their oldest power plants, so we've taken those offline already. And we're right now in the process of building a new gas generation plant. And gas has less carbon than coal, so that's the reason why we're going to more gas. And also renewables, they're adding 100 megawatts of a wind farm through a purchase power agreement, 25 megawatts of solar, and 14 are already in process, and the rest will be coming online probably next year. And they're investing, actually have an RFP out for additional wind power, and then they also are very supportive of community solar projects, which I'm going to show you in a minute or two. So Dairyland has actually, this is a regional generation transmission cooperative, has really changed the way their energy mix looks. This is 2005, 90% of the energy came from coal, 8% came from gas, and only 2% came from renewables. And that was a little bit of wind and some manure digesters. In 2025, this is what it'll look like. We'll still have 50% coal, and remember, we don't want to retire those coal plants sooner than we have to, because we've invested all that money in them. And even if we retire, we still have to pay off those sunk costs, so we want to use them for as long as they work efficiently. And we've invested the dollars for them to be clean, that chart that I showed you earlier. By 2025, we'll have 25% renewable, which is the state requirement right now, and we'll have 25% gas coming from gas generation. Sir?
What do you expect the cost of energy? Gas prices are very volatile. It's expected to go up. What's going to do this to do the overall?
If I knew the answer to that, I would not be the CEO of People's Energy. I'd have a much different and better job. That's one of our concerns, is that the cost of gas is much more volatile than the cost of coal. And so it will or may have an impact depending upon what happens in our environment. So we're trying to find a balance between the energy resources that we use that allow us to slowly increase rates if that needs to happen. So I'm going to move on to my third topic, which is renewable energy requirements. So I just talked, I'm going to back up, back too far. Showed you that we're moving toward 25% renewable by the year 2025, which meets the state requirements. However, at the state legislature, there are already proposals coming out that we move to 50% renewable. So again, this is a concern for us because we already have some generation that we have huge investments in. My word you're going to hear me say time and time again tonight is balance. We need balance about moving to a more renewable energy environment. Because if we move too fast, exactly what's going to happen, this gentleman talked about gas, but if we move too fast in another direction, we're going to have investment costs that we don't ever get a benefit from them.
But then why invest in the gas when you know that it's going to be a liability longer?
Because, well, we don't know that it's going to be a liability, but right now, in our energy world, you can't build, you can't get financing for a coal plant.
No, but why not invest more renewables?
Okay, good question. Because renewables are primarily wind and solar, right? So wind energy is produced when the wind's blowing. Solar energy is produced when the sun is shining. So gas and coal production are what we call base load production. Until somebody invents a battery that can store a lot of energy, you need base load. So when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, we can still bring power to your house.
Wouldn't like half coal and half renewable be better?
It will. Eventually, that's probably what will get there. But if you move there too fast, we're going to have some sunk costs. And right now, we need more energy at Darylyn Power. We need to produce more energy for the growth that's expected. And we can't build coal, so we need to build gas. Sir.
These coal plants, when they're retired, can they be brought back online? If gas went way high, like it did to back?
Good question. The question is, the coal plants that are retired, can they be brought back online if gas prices get too high? It depends upon what they do with the gas plants or the coal production plants. They might mothball some, which means they're just going to sit there, and it will take time to bring them back in operation, and they're actually going to they're going to dismantle some. So it depends upon the decision made with the plant, and generally that's dependent upon how old is the plant, how much work does it need, all those kinds of things. But actually Darylyn has made a decision to do some. They're mothballing some, and they're dismantling some. Okay, People's Energy Cooperative is a part owner in a solar generation project. If you know where People's Energy Cooperative is, you go north on Highway 52. We're on the left side of the road on the south side of Orinoco. And as you're driving north on 52, you're going to look off to the left and see a renewable solar plant. We're a third owner of that plant. This is actually a picture of it right here. We own that plant with Tri-County Electric and Freeborn-Maurer Cooperative Electric. They are two of our neighboring cooperatives. And we built that. We made an investment in that plant, and we're actually selling that energy to Darylyn Power Cooperative to help them meet their renewable needs. We were able to negotiate a contract that is beneficial to our members, so we're actually getting some income from that and benefiting from that. Now realize, People's Energy and Tri-County Freeborn are benefiting, but that cost of power is being socialized at Darylyn and part of the charges that they charge us for power too. So again, there's some, our cooperative, our distribution cooperative is getting a benefit, but the higher cost is being socialized to all the Darylyn systems. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know. Okay, and then People's Energy is also building a community solar project. This is being built just south of Elgin, Minnesota. If you go north on Highway 42 and you get just south of Elgin, you're going to see some panels up. It is not operational yet, but it should be by the end of November. This is a 258 kW system, and there are 820 panels out there. And we are offering subscriptions to our members. So if you're interested in solar energy, this is a way to get engaged in renewable energy without having to put it on your house or on your shed or on your property. You actually buy panels, however many you want, up to your maximum energy use, and you get the energy output from those panels for 20 years. So whatever energy it produces, when you get your monthly bill, we'll subtract that amount of energy, and it's like a hedge against energy use. Now we got utility scale pricing on this, but it's still a 13 to a 14-year payback for you. So we still need to work on pricing for community solar. It's got to come down a little bit more. My partner over here is going to tell you a little bit more about that probably, but it is, you've got to believe in renewables, because most of you probably wouldn't be satisfied with a 13 to 14-year payback. But it is an option for you, and especially if you don't have or don't want to build it on your home. And the other critical part of this project, and this is Kurt's also going to give you kind of the counterpoint to this, I hope, is that none of our members who don't own renewable energy. There's no cross-subsidization. So when we put this project together, we estimated our maintenance costs, our insurance costs, the cost to build it, everything is our cost to build it, administrative costs. We estimated all the costs. We put some escalators in there. So we have a 20-year cost. And then we back that up to how much a panel should cost. So for $750, you have bought a hedge against future energy prices. And all the costs are going to be covered by what we collected these dollars right here. So there's a member who decides not to do this is not cross-subsidizing this in any way. And my last topic is going to be distributed generation. And so, to me, distributed generation, or DG, is a term we've been working with for a long time, but I am guessing there's probably a few of you in the room who don't know what DG is. So, distributed generation is when a person or entity builds or installs generation, and that generation isn't coming from the utility. So, it's called distributed because it may be a solar panels over here and a wind generator over here, so it's distributed generation not owned by a utility.
You mean like when people build solar panels on their own house and sell it back that we hear in the stuff?
Yep, that's what we call distributed generation. So it could be wind, solar. There have been, in the past, there's been some manure digesters. They are not as popular anymore because there's some problems with them, but we have had a few of those too. So I talk about derelict power cooperative because they're our primary power supplier. And here's our concerns with distributed generation. This is all of the derelict systems. So that is 25 electric distribution cooperatives located in Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Primarily, they're all in Wisconsin. And since 2007 to 2015, this has been the curve for installations in new distributed generation systems. So just a few back here in 2007, under 50, and in 2015, just 8 years later, we have over 800. So that's a concern for us, and I'm going to tell you why that's a concern for us in just a minute. At People's Energy Cooperative, we have 60 DG systems on our lines right now. That doesn't sound like a lot. We have 22,000 members. But our growth curve looks just like this. We add 4 to 5 a month is what is going right now. So again, there are a lot of state laws associated with distributed generation. And those state laws just add another challenge to the electric utility environment. And one of those challenges is that there's no requirement to size to load. So many of our members or customers do exactly that. They are conscientious about what they're doing, and they size their distribution to the size of the energy that they use in their home or business. But there are some people out there who want to make money off these projects. And they make money from other members who don't have DG, which is why we have a concern. So an example of that is if someone installs a security light out in the middle of a farm field, that's an account. So then they install a solar panel system next door to it. If it's under 40 kW, we are required to pay them retail rates for the energy they produce, not wholesale rates, retail rates. That's the challenge. So I'm going to go back to my baker and my bakery. So now I'm a baker and I'm baking bread, and one of my customers comes in and says, hey, I can help you to make that bread. In fact, I'm going to go over here at my place and I'm going to make 100 loaves of bread for you a day, and that'll save you from investing in a new oven and another employee, and I'm going to bake that bread for you, and I'm going to bring it to you every day so that you can sell it. And the baker can sell his loaves of bread for $1.50. Or he can make his bread for $1.50, and he sells it to you for $2.50. So he's making $1 off each loaf of bread, and he's paying for his ovens and his flour and all that kind of stuff. But now his neighbor comes in and says, I'm going to help you. It'd be all wonderful if the baker can sell his neighbor, pay his neighbor $1.50 for the bread, right? Everybody would make out, even if you paid him $1.60 for his bread, and $1.75. But the state steps in again and says, that bread really isn't good for you. And we like it when more people have jobs in other places and more businesses are starting, so we're going to make you pay your neighbor $2.50 for that bread. Well, that's retail rates to that neighbor for that bread. Again, it may be a silly example, but when we have to pay retail rates for the energy that a DG system produces, we are losing money. And I'm going to show you why in a minute. It's, again, not a business model that's sustainable when you pay retail rates for the product you're producing. And in this case, for that, when we have to sell that energy or buy that energy at retail prices, the people who don't have a distributed generation system end up paying for those costs that the person that does have a distributed generation system doesn't pay for. Here's my slide. Oops, I gotta get there. I'm gonna take a roundabout route there. Okay, I apologize. So this chart is a solar generation chart. Follow me through here, and I apologize to those of you way over on that side of the room. I'm going to point to this one over here. This white line right here is the generation of a solar plant, and this is a day long. So this is midnight to midnight, basically. And about 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun comes out. That solar plant starts generating energy. You know, up here about noon, it's at maximum generation, and then during the afternoon, it goes down again until maybe 8, 9 o'clock, depending upon the time of the year, it stops generating energy, right? So that member who has the DG system is absolutely dependent upon People's Energy Cooperative for their energy, for their electricity. Between midnight and 6 a.m., all their energy comes off the grid, right? It comes off our transmission and our lines, our transformers provided, because that solar plant is not producing between midnight and 6 a.m. Then between 6 a.m. and maybe 10, that customer is using both People's Energy system as well as their solar system to get the energy that they need. Then, you know, during this period of time right here, that member is producing all the energy that they're using at their home or business, plus they're generating some extra energy, which they're putting back on the grid, and we're sending out to other members. And then in the later afternoon, again, they're both using energy from their solar system as well as from our distribution system. And finally, in the late hours, when the sun's not out anymore, they're using all their energy that they use when they watch TV at midnight, things like that. They're using it off our grid. So that's my background. To my next slide. So this is People's Energy's rate structure right now on this side of the screen, the left-hand side of the screen. We have what we call as a basic service charge, and it's for our rural members, it's $37 a month, which for many of you in the room are going to think that's a high number. And then we have an energy charge on top of that. But our cost of service study actually tells us that that basic service charge should actually be $74 a month. So what that basic service charge is meant to pay for, it's meant to pay for the transformers, the wires, the lines, the substations, the office buildings, the vehicles, the monthly billing. It's meant to pay for everything except that kilowatt hour that you use. Does that make sense? So this is just the energy coming from our power supplier. This is to cover all the expenses at People's Energy Cooperative that we have to pay for and take care of, even if you never turn on a light switch.
If you're trying to get people to conserve energy, well, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, does it?
No.
You're absolutely right.
And it annoys me that I have to subsidize all my neighbors who use all kinds of water and electricity and stuff.
Actually, you shouldn't be annoyed right now. If you're not a member of People's, and I don't want to offend you in any way, but if you are a low energy user, you are being subsidized by members who pay more energy.
I don't think so.
Now,
Okay,
I knew this was going to get difficult. Okay, because all of the fixed costs that come along with, and RP is a little different than People's, but all of the fixed costs that it costs People's to just operate every day, to maintain our lines, for all the equipment that we have out in the field, for our office building, for our vehicles, for our employee labor, for the monthly billing statements that we send out to you. Those are fixed costs that we have every month. If you never, ever, ever turn on your light, we're still incurring costs on your behalf, because we're going to maintain your line so that when you want to turn on your light, you can. So we're incurring costs on your behalf, and we're actually incurring a cost of $74 a month for you if you're a rural residential member at People's. But we're only charging you $37. So that, I'm going to go to the next slide. So we're not collecting this dollar right here in a fixed cost, we're collecting it in energy costs over here. And that's where our rub comes with DG members. And again, we just need legislation to change, and there's a solution out there somewhere, we know there is. And again, it's a balance between where we're at today and where we need to be. But in this case, a DG member, they're going to still pay $37 a month for us because they need our system. Remember, in the morning, late at night, they're using power from the grid. So they're still going to get this bill, and then depending upon the size of their distributed generation system, they may or may not pay for some energy. If they produce all their energy on their own, they aren't going to pay any energy costs. But if their system doesn't only provide, say, 75% of their energy, then they may pay for some energy. So when that happens, that DG member isn't paying for some of that fixed cost that we incur on their behalf. That's the rub we have with DG systems. That's why Kurt is sitting here, because I think it's a good idea for people in the public to understand or try to understand both sides. And I don't think tonight we're going to come up with a solution, but I think over time we are going to find a solution to this. Sir?
It sounds like you guys have a longer-term contract with Dairyland, which is probably good for safety for supplying, but it kind of handcuffs you being tied to them?
Excellent question. This gentleman just said, it sounds like we have a long-term contract with Dairyland for power. Does it handcuff us? And he's absolutely right. Our contract with Dairyland Power Cooperative goes to 2054. Are you shocked? It seems like a long time, right? I'm not probably going to be around in that year to take care of this. Do you know why we have that contract for that long? Because in order to build generation, it costs millions of dollars. Dairyland and other G&Ts have to go to the bank and get a loan. The only way they're going to get a loan is if they can guarantee that the power plant that they're building the energy is gonna be sold. So many, many years ago, our cooperative is 80 years old, but many, many years ago, that was part of the deal, that when those power plants were built, we had to guarantee we were going to buy energy from them.
Why would you not charge everybody $74 when that's your fixed cost? I mean, from that number standpoint, it makes sense to me. We pay $74 and then you do a kilowatt hour.
Would you mind moving out to People's Energy? Actually, that is we have a member advisory committee where we invite members in and talk about these kinds of things. And that sounds so logical. And it makes sense, maybe except for you don't like that idea. But it does sound logical. You don't like that. The problem is, if we jumped from $37 a month to $74 a month, you'd be talking to a new CEO standing up here and you'd see a new board of directors because it's just such a radical change in rate philosophy. We've just slowly over time have tried to match our rate philosophy with what's happening in our environment. And in the recent 5 to 10 years, our environment's changing at a much faster pace, and so we're having the challenges of keeping up with it. But I agree with you. If we did that, it would solve all the problems. Kurt and I would not have a disagreement.
And plus, you'd be able to reduce your kilowatt hour rate.
Yes, absolutely. That's this rate here. I think
7 cents or whatever.
Yeah, yep. So you would absolutely reduce it. But remember, this lady here said that doesn't encourage conservation, does it? So if you're paying 11 cents a kilowatt hour right now for energy, and we reduce it to 7 cents, your incentive to conserve, if your incentive is associated with dollars, isn't going to happen.
If I paid $74 a month as opposed to 37, I'm going to be a little conservative.
But you pay that
You pay that even if you don't ever turn on a light switch. I saw, okay, now.
I just have a question. You talked about you're going to be having to build new plants, gas and whatever. I didn't hear anywhere about biomass. Have you considered that? Since there have been studies that there's enough biomass in Minnesota to...
We actually do get energy from, questions about do we get energy from biomass? The answer is yes, that is part of our mix. We don't get a lot of energy from that, but we do get some. And if an organization's willing to build it that way and put it together, we will, if it's a competitive price, we will use that. I saw another question way back in the room.
As a co-op, do you pay dividends to your members?
The question is, as a co-op, do we pay dividends to our members? And the answer is yes. If you're a member of our cooperative for a month or 35 years, you get dividends paid back to you. We call them capital credits, not dividends, but we call them capital credits. And you will get capital credits paid out every year once you've been a member for at least a year. And it'll go on until you've been reimbursed for all of the investments that you made in the system. So we're on a 25-year rotation, if that makes sense. We use the extra dollars that we collect each year for capital investments, and then we return it back to our members.
So then what impact would that have on a person who's $74 a month?
It will have some. I can't, she's asking me what impact capital credits might have on this. It will decrease your cost some, but we don't pay out a flat amount or a certain amount of capital credits each year. It kind of depends. We pay 25%, we pay 4% of the capital credits that have been accrued. So that number changes year after year.
So if maybe I'm wrong on this, but it seems to me that utility companies, the distributed generation, we don't like the fact that you're paying, you're buying it at retail cost, but yet energy companies try to keep people from going off the grid. They're trying to get legislation that's all over the place to have people, so they don't sell it back, they just use what they use and that's it. So why do energy companies not like that?
Did everyone hear the question? Why don't energy companies like people who generate their own energy, I think is the
But they're
question.
completely off the grid, they don't sell anything back, they're not attached to the utility company at all.
We don't try to tell people they should get off the grid. In fact, we actually, I think, have one member right now who was a member and is now off the grid. and I need to keep moving because I need to give Kurt some time to talk too. So it's kind of a challenge we're dealing with here in terms of recovering our costs. I'm going to keep moving forward. Kurt, you're going to cover a little bit of this too, but the state legislature, to help us fix this problem, did in 2015 allow us to charge a distribution grid access fee. In other words, it's a fee to recover this cost right here from members who install a DG system. And this just shows what our rates are. I'm not going to spend time covering that. So my thoughts, I think conservation and using energy are the best ways to conserve energy and to reduce energy use. I think our environment is very important to us and we need to pay attention to it. We need to do things that help our environment. We need to support the development of renewable energy. I think DG, distributed generation, is here to stay. We need to find a way to work with it. I think there's new technology on the horizon. About 10 years ago, you heard information about fuel cells, and that kind of dropped off the no longer available, but that's a technology that may come back. And there's also battery technology. So if you could generate and then store energy, if you could generate during the day when the sun's shining and store energy at night, it's going to do exactly what you talked about, is allow people to go off the grid. And I also think people want reliable power. It's very important to them, and they want reasonable energy rates. So we have a number of challenges. I actually think I'm going to skip going through this because we've talked about it, but just say in conclusion that we really need balance. We're moving in the right direction toward renewable and distributed generation, but we need balance and we need an amount of time to allow us to get there so that we can provide reliable energy to all of you at reasonable rates. And my last point is, I think we're gonna solve this problem by working together instead of working against each other, which is part of the reason why I invited Kurt here. And I am going to turn this over to Kurt. And put my shoe back on. Sorry. I don't know if you noticed that.
Let's see. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a funky thing here. Oh, thanks, Relaine, for including me in this discussion here. My name is Kurt Shelm, Solar Connection, and started 6 years ago, so we just have a 6-year anniversary as of October. Before that, I was in, as Ann said, was in chemistry, so my first career was science. And I'm going to mention a little bit about that. Sorry about this thing, it's just not quite staying. How's that? I'm sorry, I know I had it before, but...
Let's see what we got from that.
So there are a lot of comments, there are a lot of slides that I wanted to make comments, but I didn't want to interrupt Elaine. If I have a specific question, could I back up a little bit? Maybe. We might not have time. So I'd like to kind of talk about maybe 3 things. First of all, just kind of the big picture of energy. In my opinion, I'd say this is more of a background, like what perspective I'm coming from. So Elaine is president of a utility company, and on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis, she has to manage that and make everything work, make it all come together. I have a different, I come from a different perspective. So that's why I'm here, I guess. So I'm trying to give you my biases. The need for pricing methods that promote renewable energy and energy efficiency. I think some of the things we discussed here may work the opposite effect, not just at People's Co-op, but in the United States. And I feel strongly about that. So, and finally, does solar energy really cost more? Does it cost non-solar customers anything more? So, maybe starting out here, so my background, my bias, why did I even get into the field of solar energy? Well, it really goes back, my interest in sort of energy goes back probably 30 years when I was in graduate school in the 80s. University of Colorado Boulder, and in Boulder, there's the National Center for Atmospheric Research, and there's also NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's a mouthful. A lot of research, a hotbed of research in atmospheric chemistry, and I wasn't involved in that, but I did take a class in atmospheric chemistry, and it's very interesting, taught by experts in the field, and already at that time, we're discussing buildup of greenhouse gases from increased, basically population on the Earth. So, in the class, so this is a plot of carbon dioxide concentration over 400-some thousand years. So I was in class here maybe in the 1980s, and it was at 320 or something like that, and now it's at 400. Basically going off the map. So we have a problem brewing. We're playing an experiment, really. Playing an experiment. And it's, there could be consequences. So carbon dioxide, this is kind of a scientific slide, I realize, but carbon dioxide, you probably know, is, it's our friend in a way. It keeps the planet warm. Without carbon dioxide and other gases like this, ozone, methane, some others that trap heat, we would just be a frozen rock, orbiting around the sun. So we need it, but there can be too much of a good thing. So the thing is, I brought this background up. 30 years ago, we knew this. We have done, really, in my opinion, not much at all. So that's my perspective. Whenever I see things like that would put a wet blanket on new energy technology that would move us in a direction that I think we should go, I don't get it. It's not, it doesn't compute to me. So I may be getting a little heavy here, but anyway, the irony is that this problem we have is so solvable. I mean, energy efficiency, renewable energy technologies, really, I know it sounds like they cost, but they really don't. When we put these in place, I'm probably oversimplifying it, but they save us money. We don't buy fuel. So in not buying fuel, we're saving money. So we make this investment and it pays off. So my perspective is that we're not doing enough, and that some of the things we discussed, that I'm going to move on to the next slide. I don't want to spend my whole talk on this, but let me get into solar energy. This is my expertise here, and what interests me about solar energy? Well, the equipment is reliable, long-lasting, low maintenance. It just doesn't get much better. There's no moving parts. It's an unlimited energy source. So the amount of people have calculated the amount of energy in 1 hour of sun hitting the Earth, 1 hour, is enough to power the world for a year. Think of that. There's no limit. National security, energy independence, I mean, it's in our own backyard, We're not bringing it from anywhere. We're not bringing it from Venezuela, Canada, you name it. Job creation, I'm going to say a little bit about this. Have a couple slides coming up. So even ignore this part about no pollution, no carbon. You have this technology that works well, it's ready for prime time, it's already being implemented. And so, move on. This is a 33 kilowatt system. I wanted to just give you at least one slide what solar looks like. This is definitely, it's called distributed generation. It's on a utility customer's site. This happens to be with People's Co-op, and we're actually just finishing this as we speak. So today our electrician was out there finishing up. The ground's not even, the new building here, and it's not even done. This is, a rather large system. I have a system on, we have a system on my home, and it's about 5 kilowatts, 5.5 kilowatts. So this is 33, so quite a bit bigger. Anyway, I want to make a few points about this. So this system was projected to offset 100% of the energy use. I know when laying at a slide, they don't like it when, and I get this, when someone over-generates. They try to generate 200% of what they use. I mean, I would be fine having a law differently that didn't allow this, that didn't allow over-generation. But I can say that 19 of 20 of our customers just generate, basically they want a system that offsets their energy use, so roughly 100%. That's what they typically shoot for. In our hands, I don't know about other people. This represents extra generation capacity for the power company. I realize this is small relative to a power plant, but if you add this one, plus the next one, plus the next one, plus the next one, hundreds, thousands, now you've got power plants that the utility company had paid nothing for. So it's extra generation for free, and they don't have to maintain it. So I just, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to oversimplify things, and that there's no problems with, I mean, I agree with everything that Elaine's saying about, you know, you've got to find a way to make this work. But I will say, I don't think it's always taken into consideration that this is, you know, free little power plants. Another thing I like about it is there's no transmission. I mean, this energy goes right into the site. There's no wires needed except for on site. It's possible, yes, that during the afternoon sometimes they might sell energy to the neighbor. It goes out their meter, through that meter, which is wonderful, and it's one of the reasons why there's proliferation of solar, by the way. So anyway, no transmission, and that's a good thing. In our house, I have an electric car, and you know, that energy, it just goes 30 feet to power the car, to charge the car. I mean, it could come from Venezuela or British Columbia. Didn't have to be trucked anywhere, piped anywhere. It's just instant, the speed of light. Last but not least, this system will forego 30 tons per year of carbon dioxide. So, you know, we talked about, one of the lane slides was all the emission reductions. And, you know, nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxide, probably mercury, and we need those for our health. But if you looked at the carbon emission, it was still up there. It was still kind of floating around, going up. You know, that's ultimately what, unfortunately, carbon dioxide is not toxic, really, you know? It's odorless, colorless, but it's what controls our environment. Anyway, I'll probably go off too much on that. So let me talk about a few solar stats, solar energy stats. You know, you saw Elaine's chart with growth in solar. This is another very similar one. This is nationwide. So it grows at about 40 to 50%, 30 to 40% a year. I'm showing this because I want to show you the prices are coming down. So this is a typical technology kind of curve. You know, you probably heard of Moore's law with computers and such. The price, as more gets built, the price comes down, investment flows in that direction, factories get larger, etc., and then more gets installed, the prices come down. So a good thing, getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. What we want is energy that's dirt cheap, that's solar, that functions without maintenance, and that's really within our reach. I'm showing this one, it's very similar, it's the same growth curve in this technology, but I wanted to show you because it breaks it out. So this blue is utility solar, that's the big, you know, solar farms. But the green is residential and the orange is commercial, let's say hospitals, Costco's, you know, whatever, non-residential. I just want to say this is a significant chunk of solar. And, you know, and it all is on the utilities, you know, they're customers of the utility. So unfortunately, this all works against utilities, you know, earning money on them, paying for the wires and everything that they need to pay for. I'm admitting that's an issue, but this is, we don't want to squash this. It's a huge percentage of the market that brings us, in my opinion, in the direction we want to go. Jobs. So here's solar jobs increasing in the blue from 2010 to 2015. Very respectable. It looks like this is oil and gas extraction, coal, mining. So there's a lot of jobs, and they continue to be created. I mean, that's a good thing. It's economic growth. But there are problems brewing. Like as we just discussed, this represents less income for utilities and possible cost shifting and other things. So I want to talk a little bit about this. But I want to go back and say, despite all this growth, the United States is still only 1% or less solar energy. People's Co-op has 60 customers out of 20,000. That's 0.3% or whatever that would be. It's pretty small potatoes. Yes, it's growing, but it's small. And so I don't understand really a lot of the utility pushback because I don't see the math of it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So these states in blue represent states where there are challenges. There's just where there's policy action, in this case against solar energy. So almost every state, in other words. Obviously this is a problem. I mean, for everyone. So some of this action includes changing or eliminating net metering. I don't net metering, you can make it sound good, or I think you can make it sound bad. I mean, I think it certainly has the ability to not waste any of the customer's energy, to be able to sell it temporarily back to the utility, and then buy it back at night. I mean, let's face it, that's one of the key reasons why people like solar energy. If they could go nowhere and they have a little excess energy, or they're on vacation, and they just lost that energy, it wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't be as, they wouldn't be investing in it. So raising fixed charges and then lowering electricity prices, that was brought up, obviously discussed. To me, that's the wrong way to go. It just is, because it just doesn't, if you've got this big charge that no matter what you do, you can install solar or reduce your energy usage some way, but you've still got this, 60, 70, 80, whatever dollar charge. It reduces the incentive to go in the direction I think we should go. Sorry. So finally, there's enacting fees for solar customers, which is part of the recent Minnesota enactment and other places as well. So here's Minnesota co-op solar fees, and I'm showing this for a couple reasons. I want to actually commend People's Co-op, because if you look at the fees, so these are co-ops around us. I just picked the ones that are around our area that we work with. So when we install a system for a customer, it's usually in these co-ops, and or obviously Rochester or some other places. But $404.93 per kilowatt installed translates for an average system to about $39 a month. So pretty steep. In Goodhue County, 27, Freeborn, 30. People's Co-op is started with a $2 per kilowatt fee, and I appreciate that moderation, because we're still actually having some installations now in People's Co-op area. But they went to 0 at still Waseca, 0 at Goodhue, and until recently, 0 at Freeborn Mauer. So no installations, because since these fees came out. So then Tri-County Electric doesn't have any fees. The thing, what I really wanted to bring up, and I should have kind of written it out, is I think it's premature, because there's only less than 0.5% of the, it's only really less than 0.5% of the customers. So is there really cost shifting going on? That's the question I ask. Only 0.5% of the customers, or 0.3%, are solar. So let's say that $37 that People's Co-op wants to get, if you multiply $37 times 60 customers, that's how many are there. I realize it's growing, but let's multiply it by 100 customers. And then you divide that by 20,000 people. So you have all that money, whether it's $3,000, you divide it over 20,000 people, it's really only about 15 cents a month. Well, my point is that right now, maybe someday it'll be a problem, but right now, is it really? So I would love to see a more moderate, even more moderate than this approach, where these, if they're going to be here, are ramped up much more slowly. Everywhere where these things happen, you know, solar has really been kind of pushed back. So here's Nevada. We won't spend a lot of time on this. I just wanted to point out that they changed reimbursement from 11 cents to 3 cents and raised fees from 13 to 40. This is by 2020, and the market for solar just went right down. Two large national solar companies, Vivant and Solar City, moved out the next week. So my question is, you know, are these customers, the overall customers in Nevada, I mean, will their rates come down? Are they really better served? I don't know. Hawaii, kind of a similar thing. Hawaii actually, where I said the whole nation is about 1% solar, Hawaii was actually 15%. They have, you know, such expensive electricity there. It's between 30 to 45 cents, I think, kilowatt hour. 3 to 4 times what we pay. So they, utilities petitioned and were successful, and net metering was taken away with some exceptions. You can't export energy to the grid, or you can do it, but then you have a fee, and you get wholesale value for the rate for the electricity. Which actually in Hawaii, that might still be economically feasible. But you see these headlines, at least I did, and stuff that, you know, comes across my desk that there'll be job losses. I don't know yet. Yeah, I don't know. But one of the reasons I showed this Hawaii example is because you cannot export energy to the grid. So Hawaii is going to be a big experiment for battery storage. They won't necessarily be off-grid. They'll still be hooked to utility, and you get benefit from that. But they, you know, already we have the electronics of the solar system. It's called the inverter. We already have electronics that can take that, dump the excess energy into a battery, and then use it later. So in the case of, for example, the case of Lane saying about the peak not being at noon when solar peaks, but being later in the day, you know, we have the capability right now to take battery storage, and battery storage prices are coming down and down and down. Take batteries, store up that energy, and deliver it at the time of the peak. I mean, use it at the time of the peak so that you're not buying peak power from the co-op or from the utility. This is getting a little bit nerdy, I realize, in terms of energy stuff, so I'm going to go on. I want to show an example of energy efficiency, just to make a couple statements on it. So I'm creating a hypothetical example. If there are 10,000 customers and they save 2,000 kilowatt hours a year, so the average Minnesota home is 10,000 kilowatt hours. So 10,000, if they save 2,000, that's 20%. I can tell you that's like falling off a log. I mean, we go into homes every week, and in my opinion, I can save it, and you know, it's really easy to save that amount of energy. Just some habits, some small investments, maybe. Let's say we have 10. It's not that there's these 10,000, and now we have 100 solar customers that save their whole bill. So that's 10,000 kilowatt hours. The impact of all these customers saving a little bit versus this, if this really happened, that would be a problem too, I think. Because it's energy that's not being sold, not paying for wires and the transformers and everything they have to pay for. So we need models that we need pricing in ways that can, in my opinion, encourage this and still work for the utility. I also want to ask the question, you know, why isn't this happening? I'm not sure. We go in homes all the time, and I don't really see, I mean, I realize there are energy audit programs and stuff, and I think part of it is that, so I always ask this question, why isn't this happening? And in my opinion, one of the things is just kind of complicated. I mean, we're doctors and nurses and you know, insurance brokers and stock brokers or whatever. We don't necessarily have kind of energy knowledge. We look at our house as kind of complicated, or our business, and say, I don't know. We hear this as solar company going into businesses and homes, I don't know where all the energy's going. You know, so I hope to fix that through every home, every business have an energy monitor that tells them exactly, and these exist, that tells them exactly where everything's going. Refrigeration, cooling, dehumidifier. Now you can make some intelligent decisions. I suspect another reason why this isn't happening is I have to wonder, do people think electricity is cheap? I mean, why wouldn't you conserve? Well, it's not in your pocketbook, I don't think. I'm not saying I want, you know, to double, triple, quadruple prices, but if you look at anything, I mean, when the price goes up a little bit, then people take notice. I mean, and look at Europe. So why do they use much less per capita than we do? Are they better people? Or Japan? No, I mean, it's because the utility prices are higher. Enough said on that. So I mean, I'd like to see low fixed charges, you know, down here and higher electric, and then maybe the same bill, but more electricity rates. I realize it works against, you know, what Blaine was saying. But I think
doesn't, if you increase the actual usage rate high enough, it'll balance out. And then people who use a ton will pay for it.
Yeah.
Aren't we already paying for it though? Are you suggesting artificially raise the rates?
Me?
To keep people from using energy? I mean, we're already paying for it, otherwise they wouldn't be.
Have the cost of all the stuff be in the actual electric rates so that people are incentivized to use less.
Yeah, that's the rub. It's a challenge, you know, how to do that. Some people say there should be a carbon tax that makes energy more expensive, and then but have that offset by reduction in income tax, reduction in not property, let's say sales tax. So no net more income or no net payments, but you're just paying more for your energy and less for other things. It would definitely, is that a good idea? I don't know, but it would stimulate energy
Well, it suggests that somebody else knows how we should spend our money better than we do.
Well, the proposal is not to raise taxes. It's just a neutral. Actually, there's a lot of different iterations of that thing, and I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not.
That could be regressive, you know, for people who have like medical conditions and have to have a medical device running a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
They don't pay, you know, taxes anyways, so they would get an offset, you know.
Yeah, and the problem in my talk is I don't have a lot of solutions, but I just feel strongly that we're not going in the right direction fast enough. So, we have a little time yet? So this solar energy raise utility rates. Well, this has actually been studied a lot. You know, and the studies may not apply to co-ops. I don't know the mix of studies exactly. I've skimmed a lot of them and looked at summaries. But this question of, you know, does it really raise prices for people? And the vast majority of studies show a net benefit from solar. Some of the things I mentioned, extra capacity, less transmission. I'm not an expert in this area, and all the costs and stuff, I'll admit it. But I want to, hope I can click on this. I need a mouse. I want to look at a link. I guess I won't. That's all right.
Okay. They can plug it in.
Yeah, so there are a lot of studies, and they basically break down each component, like avoided construction of power plants, avoided transmission, avoided compliance with carbon dioxide, avoided compliance with nitrogen oxide. So they have to do with pollutants, they have to do with the wires and stuff, and they break it down. And solar has enough benefits that in most cases, in most studies, and these are pretty comprehensive studies, and most of these are done by independent organizations that were just paid to study this. They shouldn't be biased. So in the few cases, you know, there was no net benefit. In most cases, the states around the country, these are all the United States, we're showing that solar has actual benefits. And so it should actually have a downward pressure in price. And looked at another way, again, do renewables raise rates? If you look at this chart, this is average annual increases in electricity for about a 12-year period here. So the top 10 renewable states, I realize this includes utility renewable as well, have increased about 3% a year. The bottom 10 have increased about 3.7% a year. So they're saying renewable states possibly even have less increase in energy prices. I don't know how this translates to the co-ops. It might be a different scenario. And is this statistically significant? I'm not sure, but one thing you're not seeing is that these renewable states are way up here with much higher increases. So I'm just saying, I think it's questionable to think that it really does cost more. So in summarizing, I really think we need pricing models that encourage energy efficiency. Anything that, such as raising fixed fees, I'm against. I'm just honest. Adding fees to solar, I think is going in the wrong direction. I think we have to figure out a better way. This is my opinion, right? And I understand there's a lot of ways to look at these things. Assumption that customer-sited solar costs non-solar customers more, I think is debatable, just by some of the evidence across the country and some of the studies. If you see these studies, I mean, they're hundreds of pages long where they really delve into it. So I would say my wish list would be that the Minnesota co-ops that have the fees, we can look at it a little more closely and see maybe, it's right now it's actually under contention. The Public Utility Commission is reviewing these things, and I guess I'm hoping it comes out where they feel that some of the other benefits of solar and in terms of transmission capacity, all that stuff, eventually you'll see the utilities will reap enough benefits that prices will actually, you don't have to have the fees. My other thing on my wish list, I guess, would be this overall, kind of bipartisan agreement on energy policy. I don't know why we can't, I feel that we should be able to agree on some common things. Job growth, the economics of it. Last year I was at a conference, and it still seems to be politicized, and I wish it weren't. Last year I was at a conference, and the keynote speaker was, I forgot her name. She founded the Green Tea Party. So the Tea Party is a pretty conservative organization, so the Green Tea Party is an offshoot, and they basically say, hey, we need to do more in the field of energy. We like solar energy, we like wind energy, and their emphasis is more on, it creates jobs, it's energy independence. They like the fact that customers have control. They call utilities a monopoly, and I guess maybe they are. I'm not saying that in a bad way, it's just the way we have things set up. So I'm just saying there can be some agreement on these things. And I seem kind of passionate about this, about the direction we should go, but I can't help it. So if I can answer any questions, I think that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Elena mentioned earlier 13 or 14-year payback. Is that the kind of numbers you're seeing? And if so, that may not translate to everyone. Could you convert that into what kind of a return on investment, tax reinvestment that translates to?
Yeah, I think it depends so much on the size of the system. Certainly for farms and businesses, I think when we calculate it, it would be much closer to 6 or 7 years payback. Homes might get to 10 or 12%, 12-year payback if you calculate it like that. Return on investment, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know right offhand, but that's a good way to look at it.
Well, is it a simple payback of 10 years?
So let's say if you have a home and it takes 9 years to pay back the solar energy system. This system will last 30 plus years. So, it's definitely going to pay for itself multiple times. It's just that it's not instant. I wish it was, but prices are coming down. We're getting price reductions in solar panels almost every 2 weeks. Not always big, but we do get them. And maybe not 2 weeks, but maybe it'll go a while, and then all of a sudden we'll see more of a drop. So it's going to get better and better, yeah.
I'm not clear whether there's anything generated when it's cloudy. Does it take absolute sunlight on it or daylight?
Yeah, no, so it just depends on the level of cloud. So, it might be, it might only be 50% or even 20% on clouds. One thing that people don't really know about solar, and I realized I talked more about policy than how it works, but that's what I thought we were looking for here. One thing people should know is that you can calculate very accurately how much a system will produce in a year. We know where it's located, we know the angle relative to the sun, we're within 5%. So because we use weather, the programs we use average weather data over the last 20 years. So if it says it's going to produce 10,000, that's what it produces. Yeah?
I was going to ask about, you touched on battery technology, and it just at some high level, are there any breakthroughs on the horizon and things that would be, because this is the really holdup when some of this is.
Yeah, so it's price per kilowatt hour of lithium-ion batteries is coming down at least 16% a year.
And what kind of price? I'm just trying to get a feel for
so, so it's price per kilowatt hour. So it take a while to explain, what a battery can do. Like, so how many kilowatt hours it would take to power a home for a day, for example. But the price is going down relatively rapidly, and the new technology is just amazing. Tesla just introduced this Powerwall 2. I don't know if you saw it. I mean, I thought it was just going to be a little overhyped. It wasn't. I mean, the price is twice, 3 times as good as some of its competitors. So I don't think in our market, we're going to see a lot of, batteries are kind of complicated. So one reason to have batteries is if there's a power outage. Okay, now I have batteries and I can operate when the grid is down. But another reason is if you can take advantage of utility rate structures, which we don't really have in Minnesota. So like if the energy company charged more for their peak from 4 to 7 p.m., and then they charge less. So I'm not saying the bill is going to raise, but if they charge more then and then less at night, you're definitely going to use that battery, if you want, to offset that high-cost energy. Or like in many states where there was those incentives, they'll face the solar energy system westerly. So it'll be producing its main energy later in the day to offset the peak. I don't know if that's answering your question at all.
Yeah, well, I was thinking more simply, right now you would install your system so that anything they overage, it dumps it on the grid. If it pushed it into a battery, would that help for an extra 5 hours that evening and then would go away? Or I'm not thinking about it.
So right, it depends on so it's all dependent on the battery size. If you install this much battery, it might last 6 hours, this much 8 hours, and you'd have a choice depending on what you're looking for. So when we size the battery system, we look very specifically at what we're trying to accomplish. And so you're trying to install the minimum possible that you need, because they're still expensive.
Yeah.
But it's gonna revolutionize things. I mean, electric cars based on batteries. I mean, they're gonna explode. And that's a thing that I don't know what the utilities are going to have to, I think, have time of use pricing when that happens. Otherwise, everyone will come home and plug in at 5 o'clock. You don't want that to happen. You want them to plug in when the peak is already passed. But yeah.
It seems, I'm all in favor of solar, but it seems to me that until we get good economical battery storage for solar and wind, that the power companies, the Darrell and Howards and all of those kinds of places, are still going to have to be ready to supply all the energy needs. I mean, you have, if the peak energy is from 7 to 8 in the evening, there's not going to be much solar available.
It's just electronic grid regulation is a lot of it. So yes, batteries will help. I mean, some people say that peaking plants will go away. They'll be obsolete because the batteries in the, within the utilities. And the ones that, so they won't be built or they'll go away. What was I going to say? Already, we have so many examples around the world of England. England has been 6 months where they produce more solar energy, more of their energy, over 50% of their energy has been solar, so more than coal. Germany hits days where 70–80% renewable without batteries. So it can work. It's just good, regulation. They have wind and solar, so it's all. Hawaii hits over 50% a lot of times without much battery. But yes, of course, that'll help.
But you still have to have the generation capacity, even if it's not fully used during the million.
Yeah. So, solar doesn't solve all problems, but it's this free energy from the sun, and we have the technology, we have the capabilities to take advantage of it.
I'm a simple-minded person. What are the things that would interest me in solar? Number one, rates, short-term rates. I'm not concerned with what's going to happen 10 years down the road. Okay. The second thing I'm interested in is reliability. Now I go hit my switch. It's not storming outside. It all goes out. What happened? So that's another criteria. What about availability? What about when I hit the switch and it doesn't work? Now I call up the electrician or the department to come fix it. Where are we going to find the people that are going to fix my system when it dies?
Well, they're the people like our company. So reliability, that is one strength of solar. We don't even have a service department. We don't. We manage, yes, we have problems now and then, but they're really few and far between. It's true, the sun doesn't shine at night. Does that mean we don't want to use solar energy? Well, I don't know. It's really offsetting a lot of our power. 100% of this energy that's being produced by the sun is being consumed. It's being used. Yes, it's not sun's not shining at night. It doesn't mean it's a bad idea, in my opinion. But I'm biased. And really, yeah, go ahead.
What about hail or wind damage? Then if you're off the grid, you're dead.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it could happen. They're very resistant to hail. First of all, we designed the system to meet current wind load code in this area, which is 90 miles per hour. So it can make it through pretty much anything. It's not a tornado. Hail, it withstands, the industry standard is 1 inch at 50 miles per hour. That's the testing. So unless it's really large hail, it makes it through. We've never had, 150 systems out there, and we've never had it. We've never replaced any panels yet for hail. I'm not saying it couldn't happen.
Ann, can I just have a minute?
Yep.
Actually, I want to thank Kurt for coming here because we didn't really know what each other was going to say, and we're actually on the opposite sides of many issues. But I agree with almost everything Kurt said tonight. He's got good facts, he's got good data behind it. It's that our environment, I'm tasked with running a utility and keeping it financially sound. He wants his business and others like him to be successful, and we need to find that balance. That's my word again. We need to find the way to work together to provide renewable energy, more renewable than what we are right now, and to protect our environment. And I invited him today when Ann called me because I think that's important for the future. I have children, I have grandchildren, and I'm assuming many of you do too. And my end goal is to take care of the world we live in and do it in a way that's responsible for everyone. I think we're both doing that. I think we're both doing our best at trying to do that right now, and we just need to find a few more solutions. Thank you very much.
She's on again, Janet. You did a lot. 8th, but if you'd like to join us on the 10th for the panel discussion, again, 6:30, so not nothing.
Yeah, right, was there,
Evening for non-profit.
yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. We're going for a
It was really good.
Yes, I already have.
And I learned a lot.
Your same patterns.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if I should go.